Well, of course, links are the stuff of the web. It's what pulls it all together. But we need to talk a little bit about the details of links so that you have some good practice on how to use links, and also just to point out one or two things to avoid when it comes to the use of links. What I'm going to do is focus on anchors, one of two kinds of links which are supported in HTML. The other kind, which is a link, those are followed automatically by the browser. We've actually seen one of those in use with the link relation to a style sheet. But I'm not going to talk about those in this particular lecture. It's the ones which are anchors where the user can choose whether or not to navigate to those. And they can be links within the website or links to outside resources. And we'll see examples of both of those and some pointers about what's good and what's bad to do with those. So let's look at a very first link, and here we've got something which is just a classic example. We've got a reference to an external website, an external resource, but it could also, and I'll show you how to do that, be a reference to an anchor ID within the same document. And from HTML5 onwards, that is simplified, and I'll show you the simple way of doing it, and I'll not worry about the complex way of doing it because you don't need to do that. So here we have the most basic kind of link, where I've got a piece of text within an anchor and an attribute for the anchor, which is the reference to, in this case, an external website. So that will view like this. Again, no styling. So the link itself by default will be highlighted in a different color and with an underline in most browsers, and blue is the conventional color. You can change that in the style sheet. That's your option, but there's some defaults applied. Again, I'll come back to those a little bit later on, towards the end of the lecture. So let's look at linking within a document. What I've done here is to use a design pattern which is quite common on the web. I've put in effect a contents page in the header of the document using a navbar, a nav element which I introduced a little while ago, an unordered list, because I'm not going to want those numbered by default. I'm going to use my own numbering, and here I've got a hash with the anchor point that I want to link to. Within the document itself, I've given an ID to the level 1 headings, and this is where life is much simplified compared with earlier versions of HTML. What I would have had to have done prior to that is to actually put an anchor within the point that I wanted to navigate to, or support navigation to, which provides more structure than is really needed. So we've got a much simplified version, a shortcut here in HTML5, and I'm going to elaborate on how it used to be done, because you can reliably and safely do it this way from now onwards. So you can link to parts of your document which have got a defined identifier. So either of those two points now I can navigate to, and if I want to navigate to other points, then I can put more IDs in my document and then include those in my content section in the header. Let's take a quick look at that in action, just to show it. What I've done in the example file I'm going to show you is I've put a bit more content in there, because if you just view this file as is, then not a lot's actually going to happen, because that will render in its entirety within the browser, so there's nowhere special to go to. But in this example I've added some dummy text. So here's the same file, as I said, with some dummy text added in there. I've got my unformatted contents list at the top in the header, and if I click on that, then it'll take me to the second section straight away. I can mix and match a bit as well, because if I want to link to a specific anchor point within a document, I can use that hash and ID at the end of a conventional URL, and that will take me to the document or resource identified by the URL and the specific point within the that document identified by the internal reference. So that's the basics of navigating either around within your website or to external sites. If you want to navigate to a different page within your own website, then for the reference, simply include the path to that page. So again, very straightforward. Now that's a vanilla reference. There are some additional attributes which are can be added into an anchor. Two of them are straightforward: ID and class. Those I'm not going to talk about. ID you've seen. Class you've also seen an example of those. Class primarily is going to be useful when it comes to styling, so we'll not talk about that in this course. But the title attribute can be a useful attribute to use, so I've added that in this version of the example file. So you can see there quite clearly in the A tag there are now two attributes, the reference and a title. Use that with care. It can be helpful from an accessibility point of view, but you can't guarantee that a screen reader will be reading that. But it can be useful if you want to provide a little extra background information about the link. So I've just given a tad more detail about the link here, and the way this works is that on mouse over of the link, then if the mouse hovers over the link, then a tooltip will pop up with that extra detail. I'll just show you that. So this is our sample file again, and you see the link to the Surrey Wildlife Trust there. If I hover the mouse over there, I get a small tooltip popping up with a bit more detail there. Don't rely on that. If there is important information that you require someone to know about that particular link before they move there, then you can't guarantee that they'll have the patience to always hover their mouse over links and see what's going on there. So that's not something to be relied on either from the accessibility point of view or from just the general usage point of view. So some other good practice to follow from that point of view, and I'll show you that in the next slide. So here I've added another paragraph, a second paragraph to the Surrey Wildlife section. It is actually a link to YouTube, but In the text in the anchor, I just refer to a snoring dormouse. So I just want to manage expectations a little, and what I've also done is to just include in brackets that this is a YouTube video, so that when someone clicks on that, they know they're going to firstly go outside this particular my own particular website that this is part of, and also that they're going to be pointed to a video. So this is particularly important if you're clicking on a link which may be a download of a big file, and it can be a bit annoying if you just exploring and click on a link and then everything goes blank whilst it downloads a file and you weren't sure that you didn't want that you wanted that file. So in the case of large file downloads, possibly in the case of links to external sites, then do explicitly say what's going to happen. Use your judgment a little bit, because in this preceding case where I've got a reference to the Surrey Wildlife Trust's homepage, generally I think anyone looking at that would expect that with that text, Surrey Wildlife Trust, highlighted as an active link, then almost certainly they would be going to the homepage of that particular organisation. So adding in brackets external sites is a bit of an overkill and probably irritating. So use your judgment a bit on that, but when it comes to large downloads, an obvious link to an external location, then do include in brackets a little bit of information about what is going to happen when someone clicks on that link. And just before I finish off, because I've been mentioning about external sites and links to external sites, there are some do nots here. Two of them are referring to situations where people in the past have tried to manage this issue about external sites, because prior to tabbing in browser windows, then people were quite often jealous about guarding their audience and making sure that they didn't skip out into an external site. So the usage of frames was extensively done for that reason, that the browser was hijacked by frames, and as you navigated around within the website, you just saw new frames appearing within the organization's website which you had visited, and you were never taken outside of that. If you did go outside, quite often the target attribute was used in an anchor in order to force the external link to open in a new window. And that's irritating because it introduces screen clutter. It's not in the control of the user and is best avoided. Allow the user the maturity to make a judgment about whether they want to leave your site and open an external link or not. They are mostly mature enough to know that if you have made it fairly clear that a link is to an external site, that if they are interested in your site, they will simply right-click and open that in a new tab or a new window. It's their choice. Leave them the decision about what to do about that. The third bullet point there is in terms of the text that you use within an anchor. You'll remember from the ones that I've given you as simple examples. I've referred to Surrey Wildlife Trust, I've referred to Snoring Dormouse. I've been quite specific about what you're going to get when you click on that reference. if I use words like click here, more, see the full story, then that may be okay from the from a well-sighted user's point of view, in that they can see the full context of where that text is placed. But it's certainly not good from an accessibility point of view, because if a screen reader is reading out click here, we've got a reference to some text which says click here. It's not going to be at all clear to the person listening to that what they're going to get when they click. And as I said, the title attribute, even if you put something in the title attribute, there is no guarantee at all, in fact, every reason not to believe that the screen reader is going to read that out to the user. So be sensible, be informative about the text that is highlighted as a link. And finally, just a few words about link states, because you will see changes in the highlighting or the colouring of link states as you do things. Most browsers, again, have conventions, and there's a strong similarity in the conventions across browsers, but you do, when it comes to looking at styling, you do have control over these. So different states will have different, typically different colours associated with them. We've seen already a normal link, that top one, is highlighted in a different colour to the background, to the normal flow of text, often with an underline underneath it. You'll also be familiar that when it goes into a visited state, and that was actually present in the previous example, then it will change to usually a slightly darker colour. Similarly, if you hover over it, quite often on websites you will see a change in the styling of the link text. If you're not using a mouse but using a tab to navigate around the screen, when the link is in focus, again, a change of state which is usually revealed in the styling. And finally, if you click on a link whilst it's active but not fully responded, again, you may see a visual clue as to that change of state. So those are just a bit of background as to why certain changes in the styling of links appear, and these are things which you as a developer have full control over. You can access those particular states from a style sheet and control what actually is offered to the user in terms of visual cues as those states change. So that's a relatively short lecture compared with some of them on probably what is the most important feature of an HTML document. It's the links. It's this that makes the web, this that connects everything together. And I've shown you what you can do with links, some good practice to think about when you're marking up links within your document, and also emphasize things not to do with links. Respect the maturity of your audience, otherwise they won't come back to your site.